The certified letter gave me 72 hours to vacate my family's farmhouse, the same farmhouse my great-grandfather built in 1923, or the HOA would initiate seizure proceedings. The HOA President, Denise Fairmont, stood on my porch with a sheriff's deputy, smugly informing me that my agricultural eyesore was being condemned for chronic non-compliance. What Denise didn't know was that I'd spent the last 15 years quietly acquiring the regional mortgage bank, the same bank that held the loans on her house, her board members' houses, and 62% of the entire neighborhood. She was about to learn the true cost of threatening my heritage. If you've ever dealt with an HOA that thinks they're above the law, you're in the right place. Go ahead and subscribe to HOA Victims right now, because this story proves that sometimes the people they target have far more power than they ever imagined. I'm Marcus Caldwell, and I grew up on Caldwell Farm. My great-grandfather cleared that land himself, built the farmhouse with timber from our own property, and my family has lived there for 100 years. When my grandmother passed away 3 years ago, I inherited the 22-acre property, along with something else, a controlling interest in Ridgeline Community Bank. For years, this arrangement worked fine. The previous HOA board understood our situation. We maintained our property beautifully, minded our own business, and coexisted peacefully. Then Denise Fairmont got elected president. The first letter arrived on a Wednesday in March. It was a violation notice claiming my unpermitted agricultural structure was in violation of Section 4, Article 12 of the Thornbury Estates Architectural Guidelines. The structure they were referring to was my grandmother's restored 1942 barn. I wrote back a polite letter explaining that my property was expressly excluded from the HOA covenant. I included a copy of the original development agreement showing the exclusion. 2 weeks later, I received a response. It was a single paragraph stating that the HOA board had reviewed and rejected my documentation, and that failure to remove the non-compliant structure within 30 days would result in daily fines of $500. The meeting was held in the Thornbury Estates clubhouse, a building I could see from my back porch. When I walked in, Denise Fairmont sat at the head of a long table, flanked by 4 other board members. She was a thin woman in her mid-50s, with reading glasses perched on her nose and a permanent expression of disapproval. "We've reviewed your claim," she said, "and our attorney has determined that the exclusion clause was improperly filed and is therefore unenforceable. As the surrounding development, we have aesthetic jurisdiction over properties that impact our community's visual standards. This is a formal demand for compliance. You have 30 days to remove the barn, repaint your house in an approved color from our palette, remove the livestock fencing, and eliminate what our inspector described as an excessive number of fruit-bearing trees. Those are apple trees my grandmother planted in 1971. Then they've had a good run," she smiled again. 30 days, Mr. Caldwell." Over the following weeks, the letters kept coming, violation after violation. The fines accumulated to $12,000. They photographed my property from the road, documenting infractions like my weather vane, my gravel driveway, and the handmade wooden mailbox my grandfather built. On a Thursday afternoon, Denise Fairmont arrived at my property with a Thornbury County Sheriff's deputy and a thick manila folder. "Mr. Caldwell, you have been formally notified of accumulated fines totaling $47,000. As you have failed to pay or respond to collection efforts, the Thornbury Estates Homeowners Association is exercising its right under state statute to initiate lien proceedings against your property. You have 72 hours to vacate, or we will proceed with seizure." I stood in my doorway looking at this woman who was trying to take my family's century-old home over manufactured violations. The next morning, I drove to the offices of Ridgeline Community Bank, the bank I owned. I met with my operations manager, Kevin Hu, and requested a full report on the Thornbury Estates portfolio. The numbers were illuminating. Ridgeline held mortgages on 143 homes in Thornbury Estates, 62% of the entire development. 2 days later, my attorney, Patricia, filed an emergency motion in county court challenging the HOA's seizure attempt. When I walked into that clubhouse, Denise was practically glowing with satisfaction. The entire board was present, along with their attorney, a man named Richard Vance. "Mr. Caldwell," Denise said, "I assume you're here to discuss the terms of your property transfer." I sat down across from her and placed a folder on the table. "Actually, I'm here to discuss your mortgages." The room went silent. I opened the folder and began laying out documents. "Denise, your home at 47 Chestnut Lane has an outstanding mortgage of $623,000 held by Ridgeline Community Bank. My name is Marcus Caldwell. In addition to being the owner of that farmhouse you've been trying to steal, I am the majority shareholder and chairman of Ridgeline Community Bank. We hold mortgages on 62% of this neighborhood. This is a lawsuit against the Thornberry Estates HOA for fraudulent lien filing, harassment, and violation of state property statutes. My exclusion clause was properly filed and is fully enforceable." Gregory Moss spoke for the first time. "Denise, maybe we should—" "Be quiet, Gregory," Denise snapped, but her voice had lost its confidence. 72 hours, Denise. Sound familiar? The withdrawal notice was filed the next morning. By the end of the week, I received a formal letter of apology signed by all 5 board members. My family's farmhouse still stands today, exactly as it has for a century.